Welcome to Empowered Within, a soul-quenching, transformational podcast that will set your soul on fire through candid and inspiring conversations. Leading experts, celebrities, healers, and I share our journeys of how we've overcome challenges to living an empowered life from within. I'm your host, Jennifer Pilates. Welcome to another episode of Empowered Within. Hi there, and welcome to the show. I am honored to have with us today's guest, Corey Lyon Folsom. He is a certified NLP practitioner and relationship coach who helps increase soulfulness, clarity, and ease with which you experience life. His award-winning book, Soul Statements, A Love Coach's Guide to Successful Communication, is a practical guide full of simple yet potent tools for making small shifts that produce outsized benefits in both life and love. He has also been a professional tracker, Aboriginal skills instructor, wilderness guide for newly sober people, and a vision quest leader. Welcome to the show, Corey.
Thanks, Jennifer. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. I just told you off air, I'm obsessed with your book. I think everyone should have it on their bookshelf. Congratulations on all of the success that you are having.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would love to dive in and for you to take us back to the spiritual awakening you had in 2009 and how that propelled you to where you are today with the books and all of the lives that you're helping around the world.
Yes, I'm happy to share that, Jennifer. It was suggested to me that I attend a Tantra workshop, and I had no idea what it was. And I had a free weekend, and I said, yeah, sure, that sounds fine. So I signed up, I show up, and it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And on Friday, it's a little introduction. Saturday, teach you a bunch of stuff. And then on Saturday night, you team up with one other person and do some of the breathing exercises and whatnot that they've been teaching. And I was apprehensive going into it because we were supposed to spend like 2 hours. And I'm going, I don't know what I'm going to do for 2 hours, but we're sitting knee to knee. And we created beautiful sacred space and everything's good, the setup good. And we're just eye gazing. And she knew I was anxious. And so she suggested, let's just breathe together. And so we're breathing, we're gazing in each other's eyes. And that at some point I was just transported into a different perception, a different sense of things. And I was so happy. I was so present. There was nothing to do, nothing asked of me, not thinking about the next minute. I was just fully present like I'd never been before. And so it felt to me like the air in the room had gone away and it was replaced with breathable joy. I was just breathing joy in and out, and it was so amazing. And at some point, she said, it's been 5 hours and we have to have class tomorrow, so let's call it a night. So it was just great. And that was where it felt like I was changed on the molecular, cellular level, that I was finally not practicing everything that wasn't me. I found the real Corey. And since then, my task has been to keep him.
That sounds amazing. So you were nervous to start for 2 hours and then you ended up sitting there like that for 5 hours.
We didn't just sit there the whole time.
Okay.
I mean, we kind of like danced and we did different breathings and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. What an incredible experience. So when that happened that weekend, what was your next right step in action to this new Corey?
My next right action was I actually was working with a coach at the time, a life coach, and I had a lot of grief about a very recent breakup. And she had me go to the river and let my tears fall in the river and have them wash away and take them away and pray to the river goddess to just cleanse me. And so that also happened. And just me making that, going through that grief process, getting to the other side, and just really having an ironclad commitment to just stop pretending, stop being the nice guy, GUISE, and just being speaking up for my needs and just being authentic and being clear with what I'm up for, what I'm not up for, and just a new way of being with other people, being with myself.
That's absolutely incredible. So before these two experiences, would you say you were on a bit of a spiritual path and awakening, or was this the beginning of sort of bringing two worlds together?
The first. So I was on a spiritual path, a gradual awakening, and this was when it just broke open.
It broke open. How
Yeah.
beautiful. And then when we come to your book, which, oh my gosh, again, amazing. It's called Soul Statements. How did you get to that point of the title being Soul Statements and for yourself discerning soul statements?
Well, it actually started with Tony Robbins. I was in this room in a workshop with him, and he told us, he said, our brains are not designed to make us happy. Their job is to keep us alive. And to do that, they're always looking for what's wrong, and what's wrong is always available. But what's right is always available too. And so I really took that in, and I started working with my coaching clients, helping them in those moments of helplessness or distress or confusion. Say, what are you saying to yourself on the inside in that moment? And helping them pre-choose something else they could say instead, something more empowering. And I didn't want to do the standard affirmation where you're drawing yourself to this desired future. I thought, oh, it's so powerful to declare something that's already true and real. And I have a loving heart. My soul knows what to do. There is grit inside me, or whatever. And so saying something that supercharges your own empowerment, and your cells and your bones already agree with it. They know it. And so that, I thought, I guess it's all premised on that answers are in your center. Are in each one of our center. And so if we can connect to our deep center in these little micro moments, then we can have a much better next thought, next action going forward.
I love that. It's so beautiful. How do you, to help better discern for someone, the difference between an affirmation and a soul statement? Because you talk about how a soul statement can truly unlock your power, your joy, and certainty.
Yes.
And can you just dive into that a little bit to help someone to sort of better understand the traditional, I guess you would say, affirmation and how that works versus the soul statement? I found it to be incredibly powerful. And I love you talk about it in the beginning of your book. You're like, this isn't just an affirmation. And it really is so, I found so interlocking with your inner centeredness and your groundedness once you have that mind shift. So I would love for you to share that with everyone.
Yeah. So the affirmation that we've all known, you're emotionally inhabiting this, it's like you're taking the future tense. This is, I want to be 10 pounds lighter, and you're imagining yourself, you're feeling 10 pounds lighter, and you're just bringing yourself into that state. And then your subconscious is eavesdropping on that and goes, okay, I guess we have to adjust the physical world, the reality, to match the belief. And that's awesome. And so in a soul statement affirms what's already present at your depth. And I oftentimes start with, for myself, I hear myself catastrophizing or saying some negative thing, and I go, oh yeah, that's what I used to think. And what's really true is, and then I give my brain that better message. It's an emotional postcard from my deep. And what in the affirmation, that I described, but and also in soul statements, the real power comes when you feel it. You feel the truth and the rightness of it. And that's why I think soul statements are so powerful, is because you don't have any difference between, well, the 10 pounds in weight. It's like, oh no, I do have a loving heart. That's so true. I don't have to make that up and get there. It's already true. So that's the soul statement difference.
Yeah, I'm glad thank you for explaining that because it is truly, it's so powerful. And for me, I aligned so quickly with it that I was so impressed. I went out to the grocery store and I was just like, I feeling all this ick of energy, like very just people were just on edge. And I thought, and it made me feel on edge, right? I'm like, God, I got to get out of the store. I don't even want to be around people. This isn't me. And then I thought, I am safe and I am calm. And I just put a smile on my face and I just walked out of the store. And I thought, oh my gosh, when you can take those moments to find, and which you talk about a lot in your book, when you're not in alignment, recognize it and take that shift and work with your mind on that aspect. And that really brings you home and brings you back when you're incorporating your soul statements, which are so powerful. I feel your book could easily be 6 different books. It really is in one book, which is so powerful. And you talk about your first vision quest and how it got you to your holy moment.
Hmm.
Will you share that experience? I thought that was a great one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was 17 and it was in the rural Pine Barrens of New Jersey. And I was given like an 8-foot circle that I had to stay inside of for 4 days and 3 nights. And I didn't have anything to eat. I had some gallon water jugs. So I tried to drink a gallon of water per day. And there was nothing to write. There was no food. So I didn't have to do the preparation or anything like that. There was no fire. So it's really removing all of the normal things you do when you're camping. There was just nothing to do. Didn't have a book. And so I had to just sit and I watched the natural world, the birds, the sky, and listen. There was wind, and I just was there. And so there was a couple days of just thinking about life and, oh yeah, wouldn't a fries and a milkshake be really taste really good or whatever else. And your brain goes through this, oh, I want this or I would want that. I don't have these things. Wouldn't it be nice? And so that's just what our brain just goes round and round. But the beauty of the vision quest and the beauty of nothing to do is your brain gets tired of itself. It's like, this is very wearying. These are the same thoughts I've thought my whole life. And it kind of runs out of steam in a way. And on day 3, just trying to shift the energy, I just kind of did a little dance and a little circle, shuffling around just to get my body moving. And I did that most of the day. It was really tiring and boring. That was boring too. And then on day 4, I'm thinking, here I am still. It's still me. I haven't had any insight. I haven't had a quote vision. And I sure hope it happens today because this is it. And the day wore on very slowly as time passes when there's nothing to do except sit. And along toward the end of the afternoon, I'm like, well, I guess I'll just roll up my little piece of tarp that I had in case it rained, which it didn't, and just gather up my water jugs and head back to camp with everyone else. And as I was doing that, rolling up my little tarp, bam. So when I gave up the search, the insight flooded in, and it was just, I am a man. And it's more important how I am than any particular thing I do. So it's like who I am and what I am and how I am is more important than what I do in this world in terms of, oh, am I a carpenter or whatever. So that was my big insight. And it probably lasted 2 minutes. And that was worth the 4 days.
That's amazing. What did you do after that?
I stood taller. I was optimistic. I knew that I am an upstanding man, and that's something I feel in my heart even today. And I just knew that I would choose righteousness and goodness and choose life as time would go on.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love how your unfolding here in the interview is very similar to how your book unfolds and how it brings you on your own journey, even though we're with you. And with that, there's a powerful statement that you wrote. And you wrote, "The task that hinders you is the task."
Mm-hmm.
Well, that gives you pause.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that make you just stop and think about everything in your life that you're trying to do?
Right.
What does that mean to you, and how could you put that into words and explain that so that people could understand how they can work with that in their lives today?
So if you look at this existence we all share as some sort of cosmic school, then perhaps things that happen, there's lessons in them. And if I learn the lesson, maybe I don't have to keep repeating the same thing over and over. And so when I was a wilderness guide, we, an Aboriginal skills instructor, kind of merged because I was just the one first. And then in the wilderness, we were doing Aboriginal living skills. And so one of those is lighting a fire without matches. So you get two sticks, and one's a cylinder and one's a board, and you spin them together, create a coal, make a fire. And there's about 32 little aspects of that you have to get just right all at the same time. So it's very frustrating to learn and to do consistently. And so I have these students, and they're novices in the wilderness to begin with. They have to make a fire every night, cook their own little food on their own little fire. And it was very frustrating. But that's the work, we're not thinking that they're going to light their fires without matches the rest of their life, but they will perhaps learn some ways to better deal with frustration. So maybe part of that is asking for some help or some guidance. What am I doing wrong? Could, hey, you did this. Could you watch me and give me some tips? And so the frustration that they felt was huge. And that's the work, is to let's see how I can figure that, be frustrated and still, move through it.
Move through it, which is so powerful, especially right now in our world with everything that I feel everyone is going through, because we always generally have to go through it to get through it, right? To get to the other side, we just can't kind of walk around it.
Right.
Especially right now. What advice do you give to people that are struggling? The last 4 years were incredibly challenging. I can't believe I'm saying 4 years it's been now, but I mean, it's still going. Something's still happening. What advice do you give to all of us to help us through? Because right now, when you say there are so many unknowns,
Mm-hmm.
there are also so many knowns that are fearful at the same time. What advice do you give to people to work through all this that we're going into?
One thing I was reminded of when you were saying that question is how sometimes I'll ask a person, I'll say, what's your beloved partner's, or if you don't have one right now, your past beloved partner's chief complaint regarding you? And did you hear that same complaint with other people too? And I'm like, oh yeah, they're all saying the same thing. So it's like, oh, well, perhaps I could work on that. Oh, I want to find someone new. I'm single. It's like, well, what kind of person would you want to be in order to attract the type of person you would want to be with? And so it's just, everything is an opportunity to practice being our best self. And the challenges of the world aren't going to evaporate anytime soon. And each one of us have to decide how I want to be. What kind of partner do I want to be?
What if it was possible to have local, fresh groceries delivered right to your door? Think of all the free time you'd have. Well, Instacart gives unlimited grocery delivery for one low monthly fee. Forgot that special ingredient in your favorite dish? Instacart can deliver it to your front door in as fast as 1 hour. You can shop multiple stores, see deals in your area, and save time and money. I've been using Instacart for over 3 years. I started using them in Arizona, and I'm using them here in Florida. I love the time-saving convenience. They pick the freshest products, and they keep my eggs safe too. To receive your first delivery free, follow the link in the show notes so that Instacart knows that we sent you and to help support the show. Instacart, never step foot in a grocery store again. That's such good advice. It's true. We really, again, need to tune into self to ground through our soul statements.
That's right. And really key to this, to me, the thing that's not being said is the a little bit of time spent in stillness, because that's where you discover what's in your center. You develop your soul statements. You develop your sense of self. So I can remember, I think back to this certain place in this certain mountain in the wilderness of California. And I remember stopping there at this little bubbling spring and just sitting and feeling how it was, everything was moving, the water's bubbling, the dragonflies are buzzing around, but there was this contentment that was it was imbued in everything. It was this utter contentment there, and I could sit there and I could feel it. And so if I, in stillness, remember that place, remember that sense of contentment, I have a soul statement associated with that, which is the contentment of the mountains lives inside of me. And so I can put myself in that contentment. And so I just am a big fan of that kind of stillness. And for some people, they discover their insights about themselves through a hard physical workout or a stroll. Some people sitting on a meditation cushion, other people it's journaling. So it's not just one way, but some way that you connect with who you are at your depth I'm a big fan of.
And I love how in your book, you address each one of those that you just talked about and acknowledge that not everyone just sits in meditation, and you have wonderful journaling prompts, which is why it takes a bit to go through. And I feel then to go through and revisit the different aspects in your book, which are really great. Do you have a favorite practice? Because you go through all of them, pretty much all of them in your book.
Yeah, well, I have a little kind of home, beautiful spot, a little refuge within the refuge that I will sit and just feel my own essence in the morning. So I do that. I'm also a big fan. I mean, I hike, I do journaling, but when I'm just trying to feel that centeredness, that groundedness, and so that's how I do it.
Yeah, I think that's super important. It's something we're all striving for. And
Mhm.
I find every day it's a new way that I'm adjusting to do it based on the events of that day.
Yeah. And one thing I know, like in order to kind of have the right attitude, if you will, about it, like if I'm doing a hard workout, I'm on a treadmill, or I do those things where it's like the endless
Hmm.
stairs. And I purposely think to myself, I'm doing this as an act of love to me. So because sometimes it can feel like punishment. And I just
Right.
want to affirm this isn't punishment. This is an act of love.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's something we all need to work on, that workouts are an act of love for the longevity, for our heart, for our organs
Yep.
and everything. That's very special. I love that. Tell me a bit about, you talk about spirit vitals,
Mhm.
and you talk about this one aspect that, gosh, again, I feel it's just so imperative to where we are today, especially with our empaths and our highly sensitive people. How does one stay light while going deep?
When we have this centered place that we can anchor to, that we can remember, that we can refeel, then it creates a bit of ability to hold some tension, to hold some space, to hold some time, so that we don't have to blurt out what we think or what we think we need impulsively. So a little bit of self-assuredness is part of this all. And so we're better able to just listen, and because I know who I am. And so if somebody is, even if somebody's pointing their finger and saying, you're a dummy dog and you're dumb as a post, or you're this or you're that, or you did something terrible or wrong, you can remind yourself silently saying, you know what, I'm made of tough stuff. What's right about me is always available. And the thing is, as your serenity increases, you can hold this circumstance more lightly. And so you don't need to quickly advocate for yourself. You can just wait your turn. and and one thing about, I wanted to just slip in another little thought, which is about acknowledgement. I love acknowledgement. I love receiving acknowledgement. And the beauty of it is you don't have to agree. Somebody can be saying whatever, and you can just say, I get that this is difficult for you. I see that this is distressful. And they're like, yeah, thank you. And you're like, you don't have to agree that they should feel that way or they have any reason to, but that's, you're validating, and that goes a long way toward them at some point being willing to listen to you.
Right. And I also feel that goes such a long way in our society today. I feel like many moons ago, we used to be that way. I remember being that way, where we could talk about anything, you and I. And somewhere along the lines, I don't know, some sort of shifts and turns happened. And I feel is so amazing, and it would be so important for all of us to get back to right now, of this place of holding space and realizing that by holding your tongue, holding that space, we can allow so much more light and groundedness and have acknowledgement for one another going back and forth.
Absolutely. And if you think of the concept of, say, your emotional gas tank or physical gas tank or your emotional well, having some sense of, you know, is my emotional well topped off, or is it feeling a little low? And it's totally fine to even talk in those terms, where somebody says, hey, let's do this thing. And you're like, well, I'm feeling a little low on energy, so I'd love to do that. Or let me back up. I always like to lead with the positive first, like,
Me
yes.
too.
And
Right.
so, yeah, that sounds great. And I'm feeling a little tired. So perhaps we could do it for just 2 hours, or, something like that. Or maybe we could start a little later so I could rest a bit first. So it's a way of communicating your needs with a little more grace, and having that awareness of, what am I up for or not up for? What am I capable of? I don't want to, say yes to something and then partway through be going, oh, I wish I hadn't said yes to this. So I'm a big fan of yes, and how about we do it this way?
Hey there, preparedness champions. Are you ready to safeguard your future with the ultimate survival gear? Meet My Patriot Supply, your one-stop shop for all things emergency preparedness. From long-lasting food storage to top-notch survival gear to my favorite, water filtration, we've got you covered. Imagine having peace of mind knowing you're ready for anything: natural disasters, power outages, or even unexpected events. With My Patriot Supply, you can build a robust emergency plan and protect your loved ones. Don't wait for the unexpected. Act now. Visit jenniferpilates.com and prepare with confidence. Your future self will thank you. Gear up today. Head over to jenniferpilates.com to shop My Patriot Supply along with all of our partners. Right. And that, I think, is so important too, because in some ways, again, I feel we've been much more preconditioned to just agree in the moment versus discerning and taking time for ourselves. Like, the more I learn about myself, the more I realize I'm someone that needs to take a moment, or I'll agree to everything because I'm, just want to do everything. And the more you take that step back, then the more you're honoring yourself, can work with your soul statements, can ground, and then really discern, is this really what you want to do? Or are you feeding off of someone else's energies? again, going back to your book, it's so enlightening and so deep, but yet light all at the same time.
That's right. That's right. And that's the thing. And in some clients, I encourage them to, the people that just say yes when they maybe should have said something else, I encourage them to practice for 2 weeks. Don't modify everything. So say yes, but with a modifier. So they're still in the habit of saying yes. We're not trying to undo that all the way. So like the yes, and it would work best for me maybe if we do that on Tuesday instead of Monday, something like that. So yes, and is a great place to start. And that's the thing. It's like by remembering what you're made of, beneath circumstance, beneath worry, then you're connected to your own value, and then you're more likely to, it's easier to speak for your values.
And yes, and it's so grounded. And when you say yes, and I was in such a trance with your yes, and, which is why I paused there for a minute because I was still on that. I love the yes, and versus, again, in our society, everything is a but. And somewhere but became normal when but is really a negative connon tone, right? It's like that backlash that's coming at you. So your yes, and is showing grace and acknowledgement for yourself and whom you're communicating with.
That's absolutely right. But wipes away or discounts everything that came before it.
Right.
Yeah. So that I'm a big fan of. I
Yes.
hear that. And
I love that. Like we need and in quotations and with a capital A. And let's move on.
yeah.
Okay, so there's something else I feel like this is slightly in alignment with this. You write, the reward for your enlightenment is work. Gives me pause. Yeah, exactly. That's my giggle that comes with it. I'm like, I know what he's getting about that. Talk to me about that because a lot of people don't understand that enlightenment is work. It is not, as much as we can joke about rainbows and unicorns and lollipops, it really isn't. We can feel those moments, but it is work and it's important work that should be acknowledged and cherished and honored.
Absolutely. And I am coming from it with a slightly different take.
I'm all about the and now.
uh, what my thinking was behind that statement is once you're enlightened in that, you really know who and why, not just who you are and what you are, but why you are. Now you have work to do because you have a purpose. You've discovered your purpose and you want to go do that thing, make that contribution. You're like, oh, now that I know why I'm here, there's a lot that I want to make happen and I just want to contribute. That's what it all boils down to, is when you've discovered what you're made of, like now I have something to give, and you start looking around for how to do that.
How do you help your clients get to that point of, eureka, this is it? Or do you ever get there?
We get there, and it's a little different depending on the person. And I don't know necessarily what's going to really click for someone. We explore it. The main thing I'm doing with coaching clients is I'm helping them ask better questions. So I don't have their answers, but I can help them get to their own answers. So it's really, that's one thing generally coaches do, is they help shortcut you to your own answers. And so, we can talk about better techniques for communicating and for sharing what you need all day long. And really it's this time discovering who you are and you somehow getting to your own essence. And I can remember this one woman I worked with. She came to me because she was looking to be partnered with someone. The clock is ticking. And so what she discovered was her. She discovered herself, which is really the big prize. And so now she's more attractive and magnetic to the right kind of person. And so that's how I don't think I really answered your question very exactly, but that's what I thought to talk about.
Yeah, no, I feel the essence of that is what everyone will understand. Everybody is on their own path, and what you're meant to find is there waiting for you.
Yes. And your deep knowing, meaning everyone, your deep knowing is always available, as I've said, and you have to intentionally tap into it. Yeah. You
Right.
have to put the world off to the side for a moment and just feel yourself and just allow enough quiet and stillness to hear the whisper of your spirit. And
Hmm.
one of my practices that I like is just to sit like in a meditation, and my goal is stillness. So stillness of my body and stillness of my thoughts, and just it's like a little, not a contest because I'm not contesting with anyone, but it's just a little game, I guess it would be. I'm just making a little game of how still can I be.
And how do you help guide someone when they say, I don't know that I can get quiet for stillness? What is your advice to that person?
One thing that I just thought of when you said that was the binaural meditations, where you're having some kind of music and you've got headphones, but there's a subliminal beat that's a different beat this side as is that side, and that will drop a person down into
Hmm.
lower, theta, beta, different delta states pretty readily. And I'm a big fan of that. So
Me
yeah.
too. I love dropping down and out.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and the thing is, we don't have to try and reach down and pull stuff up from our center or our soul. If we get quiet, who we are naturally percolates up.
If you're a podcast host or someone wanting to be interviewed on podcasts as a guest, visit podmatch.com. Podmatch automatically connects ideal podcast guests and hosts together for interviews. We always say it works just like a dating app, but instead of connecting you for dates, it connects you for podcast interviews. Podmatch has connected over 85,000 guests and hosts together for interviews that listeners love, all while saving you countless hours of administrative work through built-in automations. If you're ready to level up your podcast interviews on either side of the mic, start today by visiting podmatch.com.
I agree. And it's a beautiful experience, and one that we can willingly tap into any moment of any day. It's taking that first step to get there.
Yeah. And people who are thinking about, oh, what's my next step? I'm done with this project. I don't know what my next project is. And my advice to them might sound something like just trying to do as little as possible. And say your name's Frank, I would say just let Frank be Frank. And the compulsion of your soul, if you will, that whatever's your soul wants to do and be in this world, it will find its way up to your mind. And just if you do nothing long enough, you'll be really wanting to do what you're put on the planet to do.
I agree. I find the more quiet you are, the more you slow down, the more advancement and excitement comes from your soul of those aha, those epiphany moments. And then you're propelled with so much energy from them. The key is just to know that slowing down is so much better than the so-called programming of hustling through.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. Talk about the giver of power.
Mhm.
You wrote about this and how this transformed your cancer experience, which was so profound to read. And so I would love for you to share a bit about that, because again, I feel that really ties into everything that we're speaking of and helping to empower people through this journey.
Yeah, giver of power is actually a translation of the name that the polar Eskimo have for the polar bear. And Barry Lopez wrote about it in his book, Arctic Dreams. And when typically the Eskimo hunters, they're out by themselves, 1,000 miles of sea ice, they're looking for the seals. and all of a sudden there's a polar bear, and there's no trees to climb, there's no holes to go into. And if the polar bear decides to let you live, you're like, whoa, let me get back to camp and just be with this. It's like it's accessed this part of your emotional library that was maybe behind a little lock and key, and you just know a little bit more of what you're made of, who you are. And so when we have these times that I could die, I could really actually die, something happens to where it connects you to why you're here, why you don't want to die. And so that's why these big, scary events can actually, we gain some personal power from them because we're more connected to, holy crap, this is why I'm in the world, and I want more time to live this.
Right. Would you almost say that when we're going through these traumatic experiences, that what feels so disempowering actually becomes the empowerment that propels us forward?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a person can look back and say, that sucked. This was rough. I felt helpless and hopeless, and I don't want to ever repeat that. And by God, I survived it.
Mm-hmm.
And look at me. It's like, I can remember when I was 18, my father died suddenly and unexpectedly. And I was so grief stricken, and I was so feeling lost and unmoored for weeks and months. I literally thought, there's no way I can be happy again. This is terrible. And yet we realized with tincture of time and other things that I'm here for me. I'm here to be me. And it's, we went through this difficulty and still here. You know?
I'm so first I want to say I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, but I appreciate that you use that to help our audience right now, because there's so many people transitioning right now, and it is happening similar to what you're saying, very quickly or very unexpected. In having gone through what you went through, what advice can you give to others to help get them even a little bit more through it, since you've been there?
To not try and fight the feelings, to not try to suppress, but just to actually let yourself feel wretched, but with a time limit.
Do you have a time? When I'm always working with myself, I always say 90 seconds, because I learned that from the Navy SEALs. You have 90 seconds to be as happy and joyful as you want. You have 90 seconds to be as piss poor, angry, sad, whatever it is. Do you have a time limit?
Well, I think I let people pick their own time limit, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think 90 seconds is a great period of time. It's enough to really get down there, and you can still do another 90, and you will do another 90 seconds down the road. Maybe an hour goes by and you've got to do another 90 seconds because it's just the wave comes, and you just do it. And I found the fastest way through is just, when these waves of feeling come, say, all right, 90 seconds, here we go. I'm on the ride, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm fully there. And then it's time to be myself again in a different way. So yeah. And what happens is, these times of feeling wretched for this amount, they just happen. At first, it just seems like they're just going to keep coming, but they'll get more and more spread out, and they come less often. And so that's just how it works.
Right. I know. And it's so hard to talk about, to make it sound so easy to get through, when we all know that it's not. But there are times I like to think about, when I do have emotions like that, when they do come up, to allow myself that time to cry it out or whatever it is, but then to remember a positive with that at the same time, so that by the end I'm laughing, or I'm like crying with a smile on my face, thinking about this better moment. Again,
Mm-hmm.
almost like your soul statement, like to try to shift that energy from me being so sad to, well, wait, what about the moments and the energy that was exchanged
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
of that?
And, and I can remember being extra sad when I would think that my children would never know my dad. It was like, oh my God, that's terrible. And actually not sure where I was going with that.
But though, in thinking that, because I'm sure that there's, again, that's very relevant right now. My so-and-so is never going to know their grandfather and this and that. But is that true? Because the truth is there's an essence of that person through you.
Absolutely.
And I'm
100%.
sure there's got to be at least one picture or one video or something, right? Like you're now the legacy
That's
that
right.
can help the
That's
family
right.
to
That's
know.
right. And I can remember when I was in the depths of my sadness with my cancer and upcoming surgery, one of many, and all this stuff, that my best friend I was talking to him on the phone, kind of crying about it all. And he just listened really wisely. And he said the most perfect thing. He said, focus on what you're gaining.
That's
That
very powerful.
changed everything.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does. It really does. Because that's just such a 180.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
powerful thing. And I think that right now, because actually that leads us into my next question is there something that you, as advice that you can give us, or a powerful soul statement to help us make that shift that can produce, as you say, outside benefit in our life and love? And I think right now, with the climate of our world shifting on what could we possibly be gaining versus looking at maybe what we're losing, or
Mm-hmm.
what's going to the wayside.
Yeah. When I trust love, I can handle whatever happens. I am bigger than any complaint. Living in wonder is a gift and a joy. I have a sacred contract to love and to loving.
I'm tearing up. They're so powerful. And you talk about, it is the sacred contract that you walk, is that what it's called? That you walked me through? You walked me through your book, through you. I felt like you were there with me. You were holding my hand every step of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you
Well,
make
then
those,
I talk about spirit vows. Like, I
that's
take
it.
you,
Hmm.
my body, to be with me through this life, to have and to hold. I vow to not abandon my heart.
Yeah, that was a very powerful practice too. I mean, your book is so evolving. And something else that I wanted to mention to everyone when they grab their copy is that when I first opened it, I was guided to a certain section. And it wasn't even like the beginning of the chapter. It was just this. So I started reading, and then I finished the chapter. Then I went back, started the chapter to the point that I had read. And then it was like, okay, now go to the beginning. And when I went to the beginning, what was your statement? Do not treat this book like a novel.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, because exactly where I opened it couldn't have been more spot on to where I was in that moment in time.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I can't even tell you how pleasing that is for an author to hear.
Oh, and it is something that I have nourished. This isn't, you're going to go and read the whole book. Like, you're going to spend some time. It's like a college course.
Hmm.
It
I
really
just
is.
tried to,
I
I
feel,
tried to
yeah,
put
it's,
it, chock full of good stuff, tips, tricks, techniques, just powerful, potent, simple. It's kind of almost a workbook and book.
100%. And that's why I said I feel we could easily do a podcast for every chapter. That's how much nooks and crannies and gems and insightfulness was in each chapter, and how each one can be as transformative as the next.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I threw in lots of anecdotes, lots of stories,
you
little
did.
short
That was
snippets of my
nice.
life to help make a point.
It made a point, and then it kind of made it a little lighter. It kind of made me feel a little bit lighter about myself for a moment.
Right, right, right. I didn't emerge, as the person you see today.
Yeah, I know. I thought, yes, it was absolutely incredible. When you look back over the years of your awakening and finding your path to spiritualness and your awakenings, who have been your biggest inspirations?
I think about my father. He was such a kind person. And one of his favorite sayings was live and let live. Like somebody was being, loud or whatever, and like on the highway, he'd say, yeah, let him have the road. So he was just easygoing, and I wasn't naturally easygoing, but I absorbed at least some of that from him. Yeah. And just, I think about the partner that I'm with now. I've been with this woman for 11 years, and she is such a great example of self-care. I never met anyone who puts themselves first before like she does. And I like to say self-care is soul care. And she just really embodies that. And I respect it. And I realized through being with her that this self-care that she practices and the unwillingness to rush around is really part of what allows her to do great things.
I love that word, soul care.
Yeah.
I feel like this could be a book. I feel like you have another book coming.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Soul care. That's I love that so much better than self-care.
Uh-huh.
Self-care is a little bit of a heaviness to it. Soul care, you just feel like you can embody it and it's just warm and cozy.
Right. And so you're not being selfish, you're being soulfish.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Corey, this has been amazing. Will you share with our listeners where they can best connect with you and can also grab a copy of your book?
Yeah, I have a website, corerelationship.com. And it's actually not core from Corey, it's core of just your center, your core relationship. And so corerelationship.com, there's a couple dozen blog articles I've written. There's a page about the book. There's kind of my approach to coaching. And so that's really the thing. And also the book's everywhere online. You can always ask a bookstore to order it. And I like bookshop.org, where you can just dedicate whatever Amazon cut would have been, and it just goes to an actual bookstore that you cherish. So
I love that. I love to get all my books from there too. That's a great reminder for everyone.
Right.
As we are closing out the show today, what one last piece of advice or inspiration would you like to leave with us?
You can learn to call up the best part of you in a moment.
And now we have another podcast. Okay, so we have to elaborate. I love that, and that's beautiful. Elaborate on the how, besides going and buying your book, because that definitely is going to do it.
Well, just the practice of soul statements. They're connecting to your center, the best part of you, the most empowered, the most optimistic part of you. You can remind yourself, oh, I'm made of good stuff. And then the next right action is just more obvious when you're connected to, oh, this is why and what and who I am, your value.
Right. You're beautiful. That's so amazing. Thank you, Corey. This has been so wonderful and so empowering for myself with your book. Thank you. And today's podcast with our community. I thank you so much for your time and your insights, and all of the accolades that you have shared has just meant so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, as we say, until next time, may you live an empowered life from within. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Empowered Within with Jennifer Pilates. Your feedback is important. It helps me to connect with you and gives me insight into who you are and what you're enjoying about the show. For today's show notes and discount codes from today's sponsors, head over to jenniferpilates.com. Until next time, may you live an empowered life from within. Hey there, wellness lovers. Are you ready to transform your fitness journey? Dive into my on-demand Pilates fusion workouts and meditations. Imagine blending the best of Pilates, yoga, and mindful meditation all at your fingertips. Get strong, flexible, and zen anytime, anywhere, 24/7. Head over to jenniferpilates.com for your special exclusive subscription discount. Don't miss out on this ultimate fusion experience. Elevate your body, your mind, and your spirit today. Let's move and meditate together. Hey, beautiful souls. Are you ready to elevate your health and wellness journey? Join my Empowered Within Holistic Health and Wellness private community on Facebook. Imagine having a supportive tribe where you can connect, share, and grow together. Receive exclusive access to holistic health tips, empowering workshops, all designed to help you thrive. Head over to jenniferpilates.com to join our Empowered Within Holistic Health and Wellness community today. Don't miss out on this transformational experience. Empower your mind, body, and spirit today. Let's embark on this journey together. Head over to jenniferpilates.com to join our Empowered Within Holistic Health and Wellness community today. I'll see you there.